All right, here we go. It is.
Here we are, January 28th, 2025. Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 829.
Yep, it is. Oh, it's man, this January, it's almost over. It's flying by. 2025 is almost over.
12th of the way through the year. I want to thank everybody that reached out to me questioning my level of sickness last week. I was just losing my voice. Wasn't sick, not sick, don't get sick. Knock on wood. Just been, yelling and screaming a little bit on the pool deck, and it's not humid, it's dry outside, so just having a little bit of a, scratchy voice. But today I'm back, and hopefully it comes across as nice and smooth.
Yeah.
The sun is out. It's still cold, which is whatever. But the sun is out, which makes a gigantic difference. Have you been, you got any sunshine up there lately?
Yeah, it's been in and out. Today it's a little bit of a blanket, but yeah, it's not ideal. I wish there was snow. I mean, snow really kind of changes my vibe.
So you're pro snow?
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't it's just,
if you had to choose, right? If you had to choose gloomy, gray, and blanket with snow, or sunny and cold, what'd you pick?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I can't have both. I mean, this is a ridiculous question.
Not in the world we live in today. You got to be one or the other. You got to be pro sunshine, cold, or pro snow and gloomy.
I think
you can't be both, man.
Pro snow then, because there's more activity I can do.
Okay.
The cold, icy lake, and it just. I mean, it's okay. There's some. I mean, I've been skating a little bit. That's nice, but I'd rather have a little snow. I think snow is almost like a reverse sun.
Well, yeah, but as you found out, snow is not good for skating.
No, we know that, yeah. But I think, snow is like the sun shining upward to me. Mm-hmm. So,
I like that. I mean, isn't it? Isn't that why people get sunburned when they go skiing?
I doubt.
Reflects off the snow.
Oh, it could be. It could be, yeah.
I think there's actually some science behind that. Not just the wind burn. I think sun actually reflects off. There you go. Say, look at you. You're ahead of your time.
Could be. Yeah.
It could be. But yeah, hope you've all had a great start to the year. We're cruising in, as we said, to ending on the first month. That's it. Just like that. Boom. 12th of the year, over. Which is crazy to think about. Like sometimes we think like, I remember I used to have this mindset and was told this when I went into treatment, was that the days like drag on forever, but the weeks fly by. And that's very much how I feel like the last month has gone. Like, you're start of the year, you got the whole year 2025, and like you're already a 12th of the way done. Checked it off, right? And either did a lot this last month or you didn't do a lot, or you're trying to figure out your way. As we kind of make our way through, running season, you got a lot of 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, ultras, all kinds of fun stuff. Some of the indoor sprint tries get rolling in February and March. And then you got, what is that? You got Puerto Rico, 7P. I got a lot of races coming up here in like the next 6 to 8 weeks, and people are trying to, figure things out and planning for the year, or they're trying to, generally speaking, still trying to like figure out what kind of, groove they're having. But like I went on I would say semi tirade yesterday, coming out of the weekend and going through Training Peaks, and this because we do this podcast together. What, 95% of our podcasts are pretty, hey, just listen to your body, love yourself, take care of yourself, don't be so hard on yourself, do what's best every day. And whenever we do the podcast that may or may not happen today, we always get you can't be both. You got to decide, right? Sometimes you guys say push through. Sometimes you guys say listen to yourself, and both are true. Just like you can like the sunshine and you can like the snow, right? They all have their certain times a year where maybe it's not what you want, but it's what you need. Right now, as pretty typical, the last couple of weeks for a lot of people have been you've been snowed inside, you've been stuck to the treadmill. Your whole year's been out of sync. I know here specifically, like you had January 1st popped in like right in the middle of the week. So everyone pretty much wiped away that first week of the year is basically still in 2024. And then here, like the next week, kids are out of school Monday through Wednesday, went back Thursday, out of school Friday, then no school Monday with Martin Luther King. It's like, first of all, we want to go back to school again. But it's just like people, especially for endurance athletes, right, who crave, being in a routine. We are creatures of habit. We like things to be predictable. I do think it's been difficult for some people to get in, these really good, solid routines, which again is what people crave, like to start the year. But what I've also found is that the level of acceptance of excuses have also become like on an all-time high. And if you're one of my athletes and you read my email yesterday, you can probably just like mute this and not listen because you don't need to hear it twice. But yesterday in my weekly email to our team, and I just kind of said, listen, like at some point we got to learn to, I think one, it's important for everyone, right? And this isn't triathlon related. This is more like life, but as we always say, like, triathlon bleeds into life and life bleeds into triathlon. Our training is usually very representative of our life, and our life is usually represented very well in our training. And I just kind of went off for a bit about excuses and why we make them and how often we make them. And, if you continuously quit in training, you're more than likely going to keep quitting in life, and because we are what we repeatedly do. The more inconsistent you are, the more you quit, the more you half-ass things, the more likely you are to do it the next time, right? We're always, in my opinion, we're always creating habits. Always. Good habits, bad habits, we're always creating habits. You're never not creating or not implementing some kind of a habit, or at least concreting it or diminishing it in one way or the other. You're always doing one piece of it. And I think when we look out and I think it's become very accepted, right, in our society to cheer on the how should I phrase this?
Soft.
yeah. Like you do, like and then I noticed this, like, a couple years ago, like people, you can almost get more cheers and more high fives from like not accomplishing something than you do from accomplishing something. Because the way that things have gone the last 4 or 5 years, it's like and I've seen this for, a decade, is, misery loves company. We've always known that. That's like centuries old. Misery loves company. And most people, and you hear this too. I remember one of the first stories you ever shared on the podcast was about like some of the guys that you would go back home and visit, and they're like, why do you even do that kind of stuff? Like, that's so dumb. And you're like, people like to cut down and rip down people who are committed, people who have routines, people who have whys, people that, find ways to get stuff done. And they do that because it makes them feel bad about themselves because they can't do it themselves. And so people want to drag you down to where you are in life, whether it's being fine, being mediocre, whether it's fine not addressing anything, whether it's being fine, getting sick all the time. They want all this kind of, they want company. And if you like, go against that and you're like, that's not good enough. I want to get better. I don't want to make excuses. I want to find a way to get things done. Then all of a sudden you're also, because I'm sure most endurance athletes hear that. Why are you so addicted? Why are you so obsessed with this? Why do you, I don't want to be like that. Well, then you're like, that's fine. But find something to be passionate and love, and then find things to be committed to. And there's just, again, like, I could go off and you wouldn't even have to like, say a word today, but I know you have a lot on this topic too. Is like, I think we're in this like interesting period of one, time in this world, but also like with training, getting ready for races, is like yes, training during the winter is hard. We get it. Guess what? It is in August too, when it's really hot. Like there's very few months a year that are perfect for training. And this is not. But also what we have distance from race. That also kind of weaves into our psyche of letting ourselves self-sabotage the weeks that we have. Oh, I got time. But my first race is a D race. My first race is a practice race. It's not a big deal. But again, like you are what you repeatedly do. And I see this every day in Training Peaks, athletes that are super consistent, banging things out. They just like to get things done. And that's who they are. And then you have some that very rarely like to get things done. And that's just who they are. And if you don't think that those attributes and those characteristics of training are fully representative of them in life, then you're naive. Period. And so I just think sometimes we need kind of a restart or a reset or a, swift kick in the rear end to jumpstart. Be like, you know what? Maybe I'm making too many excuses, right? Maybe I'm not working hard enough. Maybe I am falling into that personality of woe is me, or I can't get anything done, or I can't do this. And maybe I'm adopting this personality that is weak and that is tolerable of mediocrity instead of the kind of person that I want to be, which is hardworking, resilient, a go-getter, right? Motivated. And yeah, you don't have to be all those things 24/7. No one expects you. It's almost impossible. But at some point, you got to kind of make the decision, look yourself in the mirror and think, you know what? Kind of like, like one of the famous sayings in AA, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to make a change.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's legit how you feel, right? When you're in your disease, it's like you just feel sick and tired all the time. And I love that quote. It's like, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And the goal is, well, or not the goal, but the the shift is, well, then finally get up and do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I think about this in terms of me. It's very interesting, I think, because we've all been through this, right? This situation where, you have a run that you have planned later in the day or tomorrow or something, and you kind of get there and you're like, I just don't feel like, I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing it. So it's like, there's that fine line between saying that in your head, but in the other part of yourself, you really do want to do it, right? It's something you want to do, but for whatever reason, you're kind of like really making it difficult. I think about that a lot because just about every night I get into the cold tank. I never want to do it, but I always want to do it. You know what I mean? It's a weird kind of sticky point because it's something that we've, in the big scope, kind of decided that we want to do something better for ourselves. And I think that's why most people get into triathlon, and we want to do it, but for whatever reason, in certain moments, we can try and talk ourselves out. We can either go on social media and kind of look at other people like, fuck it, I'm not doing anything, and kind of reinforce a belief, or we go on there and try and get motivated or something like that. And, I think I've always kind of like lived in this sort of, there's that concept of middle way. I guess it's a Zen thing or something, but it's sort of like just being kind of in the middle and balanced with everything and looking at things from both sides of it. So it's sort of, to me, that's how, like, our version would be called in the ballpark kind of thing. It's sort of like being able to, if you're ready and, taking the reins if you want to go, and then sometimes maybe not. And I go through that a lot through the winter for sure, usually after doing a fall Ironman, and then it's kind of like in and out, just trying to stay in the ballpark, trying to be in the but mostly I do find myself kind of like, I don't know if it's a guilt factor or what, but you kind of figure out a way to push through it. And when you do, and lately, obviously, like, it helps having something out there. I think sometimes for most people, for me, it does. Like, we got run camp, and I haven't been putting a lot of time into running, but the last, week or so, I started doing a little bit more. And, that's kind of what I'm preparing to run 48 miles or whatever we're going to do by starting the week before the race, but I have been, staying in decent shape. So, but the point is I started running a little bit, and the next day I don't feel like running, but then I did it and I felt better. It's sort of getting through that hump that is very interesting to me. Like you said, sometimes you just need a kick in your ass or a jump start or whatever it may be. And it's almost like just flipping it's almost like, what is that? Like the hourglass, when you flip it over, it's kind of like just flip it and go the other way, because that's, I think what happens, sometimes in December, January, we kind of get into this like weird spot where it's okay to, one more day, I'll start tomorrow, that kind of thing. But you do need to just sort of pick it up. And I was talking to an athlete yesterday. We've been, you know, because a lot of people, like I do too, I struggle getting on the bike at this time of year in the trainer sometimes. And so we're just doing short rides and everything. And that really wasn't kind of hitting the spot either. But then we, you know, I just made up some workouts that were kind of had some pops in it and like a few little big gear segments, just kind of break up a real short ride, but just kind of put some things in there to kind of give almost like a little bit more of a target, or at least a little kick in the ass, like you're saying. And those types of things are very, very tricky, but I do think it's a weird thing how you can just be sort of right in the middle, and, you know, one step or one thought can push you left, or I don't want to say left or right, but like to the other side or the positive side. And it's just a matter of kind of just doing it sometimes. I mean, I think about just do it as a marketing phrase, and I just think it's the greatest thing ever, really, if you want to boil down all the best marketing catchphrases or branding phrases. It really is just a matter of stepping into the fire, like Bukowski said, and just getting the momentum going the other way, you know, because it's so easy. Like you're saying, man, there's just so many messages out there these days that just give it, it's okay. Don't do it. Just don't do anything. You know, it's kind of like that weird psyche that gets in people's heads. And I just think it's like, it's almost like running rampant sometimes. So just go out, and I think it's good to go out and push yourself, and then you actually realize that you can do more, and you aren't in that state. You're maybe in that state of mind, but your body's not really in the same place.
Yeah, and I think like it's important to note, like, this isn't something that anyone expects of themselves, you know, outside of like maybe like the Jordans and the Kobe's, like those guys, like, you know, they don't expect themselves every single day, every single hour. Right. You know, some that do, like, that's, you know, like that's why they're the best ever. Right. But for us mere mortals, like, you know, no one expects you to be perfect all the time. But what you should expect of yourself is to recognize you're in a rut, analyze why you're in that rut, and then figure out a way to get out of said rut. Like I think this is a very similar to, you know, because you hear all the time, I'm just in a rut. I just don't have any motivation. I just can't figure out what's going on. Like, but are you really working on figuring out? It's like, I feel very similar about ruts and excuses as I do injuries. You're either, once you're injured, you should now be in the process of recovering, not staying injured. And a lot of people, when they get injured, have a niggle, they just stay injured. They stay having the niggle. They don't do anything to get back on the road to recover. They're not on a plan. So as they sit there and they feel themselves staying injured, obviously I think it eats away at your mental, like, emotional energy, right? And, you know, things start to just decay from a physical standpoint, and obviously from just like, you just lose, you know, the sedentary nature for most people of just being injured and not being in routine. Like, it just decays away your underlying base, like, dedication and motivation to move. And that's the same thing as being in like a rut. Like, once you find yourself, just like, you know, habits, right? You're either creating them or you're degrading them, one or the other, or you're keeping them. Like, once you figured out and you're in a rut, that rut didn't just happen overnight. You weren't consistent for 4 weeks, then woke up and you're like, I'm in a rut, dude. It doesn't work like that. There's a slow, you know, once you go back and look at it, very predictable, you know, dead end into said rut, right? You either went out too hard, or you overcommitted, or you got sick, or you got hurt, or, you know, some stress happened in your life and you didn't do anything to like help dissipate that stress or work through it. It just kind of slowly ends up and you've dug your hole, and now you sit in said rut. Well, the problem now is that most people just get a fucking lounge chair and post up shop. Well, I'm just in a rut, man. Are you? Tell me about that. Tell me about that rut. I'm just in a rut. All right. Well, think your way out of it. Think your way, right, into creating a plan to then get out of said rut. Right? All right. So I'm in a rut. How did I get there? Well, you know, I got stressed and I decided not to work out. Then I started feeling bad. And it's a vicious cycle of no sleep, poor eating. And now I had no, and then, okay, now we know how to change it. I'm not expecting to get out of it tomorrow. Right? But do things that at least can start moving you towards getting out of the rut. Because again, it's never so black and white. Like out of a rut, in the rut, out of the rut, in the rut. No, I slowly got myself into the rut. I'm here for a day or two. Now I'm going to actively work my way out of getting out of the rut. Getting out of this place where excuses are dominating your thoughts, where you're surrounding yourself with people who are perfectly fine patting you on the back because of your failures or your mediocrity or your decisions to not do better, right? And so be active in it. Figure out why that is. Again, it's the same thing with getting injured over and over and over again in the same way. Do something about it. Like we always like to blame certain things. Like then do the work that's required to not continuously have that injury. Right? Like so at some point we have to take ownership on things, which I think is also very hard, right? It's the hardest place to ever look in this world is in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? What am I not doing? Because that's usually the question, right? You tired of getting sick over and over and over again? Let's stop doing the things that more than likely lead to you getting sick every other week. Right? You're tired of not sleeping well? Fix your sleep hygiene. Fix your diet. Tired of being tired all the time? Adjust your lifestyle. You're tired of reading on social media? Delete it. Like we all have these choices, but like at some point we also have to take ownership into why am I in this spot and what did I do? Which again is what the conversation we really don't want to have, right? Because then we have to put blame on ourselves, not everyone else, right? It's like that's one of my huge things right now with Hayden. It's like, oh well, so and so. I'm like, no, stop, nope, we're not going down there. We're not blaming so and so. We're not blaming so and so because this didn't happen. They may have had an effect on your ability to do it the way you wanted to do it, but there's always a way to figure out how to still do it and at least do it to the best of your ability. Because effort breeds confidence. This is a huge topic with Hayden right now at school. Is he's been struggling with some of his schoolwork, and so before Thanksgiving in December or Christmas, he was very, very, very conscious. If he didn't get an A, if it was anything less than perfect, he got really, really upset about it. And it's listen, dude, you don't need to be perfect. Just do your best. Have fun, do your best, work hard. That's what makes you feel good. And then, but post, the freaking 7 weeks off, I feel like they had a school. He's had this I don't really care mentality about school. And last night we're sitting on the couch and I told him, I said, hey, dude, I said, tell me a little bit more about this new attitude about school. Why did you just all of a sudden not care? And, he's 8, so he doesn't have all the answers. And, he's has a hard time still verbalizing his feelings. And I said, can I ask you something? And he said, yeah. I said, because I know this about me to be true. And I know that this was very much me basically through my entire academic career I said, at one point I found myself not trying on purpose because failing and not trying felt a lot better than failing if I tried. And I said, do you feel like that is you? Do you feel like it's easier to not care? So if you failed, you can just say, well, who cares? Than it is to try really hard and not meet the expectation that you have. And he said, yeah, that's kind of it. And I said, well, listen, we don't gain confidence from the result. We gain confidence from working to be prepared. And it feels a lot better to feel prepared and to be prepared than it does to not care. Right? Then I said, don't you feel better after we work hard on your multiplication or your homework? And he said, yeah, I always feel better. I said, why? And he said, well, because I know the answers. I said, that's exactly right. I said, you feel better and more confident when you care and you work hard. So you have to work hard. And yeah, nobody said working hard is easy. Then that's not easy when you're 8. It's not easy when you're 80. It's not easy at any age, right? To always want to work hard. But I think we do. We get stuck in this mentality of, where I don't care and I don't try, I can just go back and say, my training was inconsistent. I didn't really have it in me. Because the expectations grow as you become more confident, as you become more caring about, the result. But if you stop focusing on just the result and just focus on the work, right? And how the work makes you feel and how being dedicated makes you feel and how, sweating and getting your hands dirty and making things probably like that, that's how you grow. And I just think that when we go through these periods of time and you fail to get out of these ruts and you just want to blame it on being stagnant, you're just sitting in your own misery and excuses without really wanting to go anywhere. But it does, a lot of it is just like, ask yourself how you got there, ask yourself what you need to do to get out of the rut, because if you know how you got there, you know exactly how to get out of it. It's usually the opposite of what got you there. Right? All the answers of what got you there are also the answers, inverted of how to get you out. But we, sometimes but I think it's hard, right? Because you sometimes get a lot more hugs and a lot more coddling when you're in the rut than you do when you're out of it. And I think that's also a problem, right? You don't get as many, high fives or slaps on the back. It's like, hey, it's okay. Just do what you got to do for yourself. I can tell you right now, doing that, I fully support that. But what I don't support is doing what you do yourself, sitting in your own misery and excuses and being comfortable staying there.
Yeah.
That's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just, and I had this thought, it was late last week, or earlier last week. I didn't think I mentioned it to you on the podcast, but I thought about you on like the day before, on Monday, when I had a rough day of working out. And you and I also talk about, sick and like feeling sick and being sick. And I felt like sluggish on like this. Again, this is a week ago yesterday. And I took Sunday off when I had been training all day. Not all day. I trained every day that week except for Sunday. And I woke up the next day and I felt off, right? Because I'd taken a day off. My body was like run down. And my first thought was like, oh my gosh, maybe you're getting sick. You don't have time for this. And then my next thought was, you're not sick. You were just sick of being sick of sitting still. And I think so many times, like, because when people are told they're sick or feeling sick, they immediately think, okay, I must now be sedentary. I legit think that my body just thrives off daily movement of a certain amount of minutes to make itself feel at like a high level. And then I thought to myself also, like I had this conversation with somebody later that week, was when you're able to have like a high level of energy, because you're so active and you're fit and you're taking care of yourself, even the smallest dip in not feeling like that, right, that makes you feel, run down or lethargic, if you will. That's how most people feel 24/7. That's just what they've adopted as their daily like baseline. Lethargic, no energy, no drive, tired, sluggish. That is what they feel. And you get like one dip into that, and it feels sick to you because it's off. And I wasn't sick. I was just sick of being sedentary.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot there that really resonated with me. I'm going to start with what you said about when you're talking about Hayden, about this not trying on purpose thing. That really hits home with me because it is a lot easier to kind of give yourself an out, It's sort of like, well, I didn't really try. I mean, I kind of gave it a little bit. I mean, that's sort of like, I do that a lot with Ironman the last several years. I've kind of, done enough to be dangerous. And I realized a lot of times going into Ironman that I'm maybe undertrained, but we talk about that, how that's okay. And I think I've proven that too. But I think what I do though is like I might be physically, training undertrained, but I really work on the mental game like over the last month or so. I mean, I'm like, all right, well, I got to be able to get myself into this right spot where I can get through this and dig a little bit deeper maybe on this one day, because that's what it is. It's one day. And we've talked about that so many times. It's like anything's possible out there one day. So I'm always in that mindset. And what you just said about sickness, and I don't know where I got this or what happened, but like I won't let myself believe that I'm getting sick. I mean, it'll come in, it always comes in, and then I just talk myself out of it. And I do, like you said, it's like with injuries, right? Proactive and doing things that get you through it or whatever. So it's almost like immediately it's like I'll limit my being sorry for myself vacation time. it's like, okay, all right, I don't feel great. Maybe I'll just rest this out. And I know we talked to Starkey that day. If he feels like he's getting sick, he just sleeps for 2 days or whatever, which might be the great solution. I don't know. But 2 days is not 2 weeks. And if that works, I think that's a great solution too. But like, I just try to get really almost, I don't want to say aggressive, but like active with my body when that stuff starts happening. I just start doing things. It almost might seem counterintuitive. Like, I always talk about to my athletes about doing, if you feel like you might be getting sick, just go into like some serious deep breathing routines for like a long time, maybe like 30 minutes, and just keep doing that a few times a day. Or one of the other things I like to do is get in the sauna. And obviously the natural thought on that, right, would be, you sweat it out, right? Sweat it out, drink a lot and sweat it out. But it's also like, I found out that when you get in a sauna, like when your body is healing, you kind of feel like you're getting, people say they're getting sick when they get a fever, but the fever is actually the healing process. And that's just a mind shift for me. It's like if you're feeling like you're really hot and you're getting a fever, yeah, that's part of the process. But I think it's the part of the process where the body's healing itself. And to my belief, going in a sauna, you don't have to use your own body energy to get hot and heat things up. So that's, whether or not that's true or not, you think I'm a quack, I just think about things like that. And even like sometimes, like when I feel like I might be getting a cold, I'll get into the cold plunge. It's like you go, like Wim Hof always says, go to the cold so the cold doesn't come to you. And it's just weird things like this that kind of like almost jack my body into fight mode or something like that, instead of just because so many, I don't know, man. I know people get knocked out and knocked down for a long time, but I do think that, I don't know, this goes back a long ways, because I really believe in sort of like, in helping your body get through these things as best you can. And I know that that's a little complicated, but I do feel like that, because when you said that about injuries, I think it's a very similar thing, because, your first instinct is to go get a shot or like get this kind of like some kind of help or whatever. But I think there's a million things we can do to kind of what I call train to heal. And, I look back to last year, I threw my back out on that bike. And then the first thing I started doing was just like sup paddling, and it was kind of a easy, subtle, work for the back, just the blood flow. That's the kind of stuff I think about. I was like, how do we get the blood flowing a little bit better? And how do we get things moving around? Because I feel like that, in a weird way, like when we get stagnant, like you were saying, what was the thing you said? You feel sorry for or what was it you were saying about being sitting around? That's the thing, right? So sometimes that becomes like, I don't know if it's the right answer. I think that's why I like to, people should probably walk more when they're feeling like they're not feeling good or something like that, just because you really want to get things flowing through the body. I think that's probably the most underrated part of health, actually.
Well, and I mean, usually, not always, but a lot of times movement is always the answer. Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. If you're really, really hurt, don't do it. If you're really, really down and out sick, don't do anything. But a lot of times it's like, and I think that's like the hard line that we oftentimes straddle, right? Is when you need extra rest, maybe it's not about doing nothing. It's about just doing it. It's very similar to like on the reverse side. We've used this this subject and kind of example a lot of times in like peak season, right? So like May through September is you give somebody a day off on a Sunday, and they go out and they do 8 hours of yard work in 110 degree heat. Mm-hmm. And then they have a protein shake and a half of a PBJ, and then they go sit in the stands at a baseball game for 4 hours. Does that sound like a recovery day to you? No, it doesn't sound like a recovery day at all. Mm-hmm. Right? So like and then the flip side, like when you think about habits and you think about like what to do for your body, when to do it for your body, like, yeah, like a lot of times movement is, and there is plenty of research out there that says like, moving movement and getting your blood flowing more than normal is a lot better for your body to help identify what's going on in your body and then, address it than just sitting there and being like, sedentary and still. Even though, and because again, like, and I think that's what's so hard with athletes, right? Is when you give them and you hear this all the time, like from athletes, like, I feel worse during the recovery week than I do during like the hard weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true because your body's so used to movement. Like you go back into this and yes, you're repairing and you're getting fixing, but like you don't feel well when you aren't moving and, you're not flushing things out and you're not improving yourself aerobically. Like that is true, but you need those to repair so you can come back and do it bigger and better the next week. But what happens is like, I think a lot of times what you hear when you hear athletes talk about, I don't want down, it's like they're afraid. It's an addiction. Not an addiction, maybe a strong word, but like I think it's one of those healthy addictions. Like you're addicted to feeling really good. I'm addicted to the feeling that I get when I come back from a run. I'm addicted to the feeling that I get when I get done having a swim. I'm addicted to the feeling I have at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening when I'm still kicking it and plowing through and feeling amazing and everyone else is crashing, right? I'm addicted to, being able to run up this hill when everyone else walks, right? I'm addicted to being able to keep up with my kid as he runs around. Other parents are sitting, in the bleachers throwing back their fourth beer. There's nothing bad to be addicted to. But you're addicted to that feeling. And what you're terrified of is going back to being that person who is getting their body now craves more, not because it happens. And it's anytime you take time, and I've done it and I know that feeling because I've been there. The less you do, the more you crave less. You just don't want to do it. Right? You don't run for a week. It's so hard to like make yourself want to run that next week. It's because you're like fighting, because again, like your body's just going in different. It's like you're creating resistance or acceptance, or drive or whatever you want to call it. And so the more you sit, the more excuse you make. You're creating resistance to work. You're creating resistance to progress. You're creating resistance to being the best version of yourself. You're throwing wood on that fire that is going to burn towards complacency, mediocrity, quitting. You're just throwing up, and so it's going to be that much harder to put out when you want to start throwing wood on the other fire. It's hard, but I think that's like, and I hear this too, even from like people in my circle or around. It's like, oh, you're just you're just too motivated, or you're too driven, or why are you working so hard, or why I'm like, that's because that's fucking who I am, and that's who a lot of people want to be. They just don't want to do any work, right? Or I just don't want to take things so seriously. I'm like, dude, you don't take anything seriously. Like you don't even take your health seriously, and like people that are healthy and watch what they eat, they're like, oh, why do you always want to do it? I'm like, that people say that because they can't do the same thing. Right. And so like when you look at your life, look at your week, it's like, what kind of habits am I creating? What kind of resistance am I creating? Or do I have this feeling like that I'm just addicted to really feeling good? And there ain't nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of bad addiction in this world, but addicted to feeling good, having energy, sleeping well, eating well, treating your body well, like preach on, keep having those addictions, right? The addictions to excuses, to eating like crap and treating your body like a carnival, maybe ditch those, right? But it's like, again, like you're always creating a stronger addiction or not, or a habit, however you want to call it. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. So again, like I get it when people get through those and they hate recovery weeks or downtime. They're afraid of what's going to rear its ugly head, right? And more than likely, they fear it because they know it really well. I always feel worse when I take a day off, or I always feel worse after. I don't want to lose. Hear this a lot. I don't want to lose fitness. I'm like, well, you're not going to lose fitness. But I'm hearing you say is like, you don't want to take. You got 2 feet into being driven and determined and motivated and great time management and treating your body like this, like you're afraid to even put one toe back to the other side because you know it. It's the all too familiar feeling, right? And I have that not every day, but I have that maybe a couple times a year. I have that feeling of Man, like, wouldn't it be nice to sit outside? It's usually in like late to early May every year. I'm like, man, wouldn't it be nice to just go like sit on a patio somewhere and have a margarita like a normal person? Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But guess what? I can't do that. Nor would I ever, because I also know what's on the other side of that. You know, anyone margarita was doing freaking margarita headstands and getting kicked out of the restaurant at 5 p.m. Like there's no happy medium. And I do think like in an addictive world, like when we feel that kind of going back to that place, like we were so scared to go there that we don't ever even want to like touch it, which again isn't a good thing either, because you do need that rest, you do need that time to repair. But on the flip side, like a lot of people are, it's like they're so stuck in that living in excuses and being okay with not being as successful as they want to be. Like being successful is almost like it's not a turn off, but it's like, oh, but I'm there's no expectations down here. Nobody's looking at me down here. I don't expect anything of myself. It's pretty fucking comfortable down here to not expect anything of myself, to not be okay with, to be perfectly fine with excuses. I can excuse away everything. And it's getting out of that discomfort that I think is really, really challenging for people, because they think it comes with expectations, but it really doesn't have to. It just comes with having a different kind of addictive nature to a feeling that is really, really good for your body versus not so ideal for just living in health in general.
Mm. That's interesting, dude. You know, you talk about the down week and how people might on a recovery week might not feel as good and everything like that. And that's why I'm so obsessed with that kind of week, is that I think a lot of times, you know, I always use drumming analogies, that, you know, a peak week or something is like playing a drum solo, and a recovery week is sort of like working on your chops in silence. And it's very uncomfortable, I think, for people to be kind of in that quiet space, or like a easier, you know, space. So I really try, you know, it's sort of like flow. When you're out there doing a harder week, you know, you got to kind of just keep grinding, and you don't think about it as much. But like in a, you know, that's why I've been for a long time now, actually, just sort of super intrigued with slow treadmill runs. And I know you used to do this, and it's sort of like all the effort goes into figuring out how to just flow in that space. It's because I think when you're going slow, you think about things more, right? Like you're thinking about pushing off and then landing, but when you're landing, you're still thinking about pushing off, and your brain and your body are a little out of sync. But if you're going kind of harder and faster, you're just kind of in the moment and just flowing with it. So that's why I'm so interested in this, you know, because nobody really likes running slow. I feel like it's you know, people like going easy, but the whole idea of, you know, just keeping it chill and just running and getting your, you know, aerobic system going, I think people struggle with that. And to me, that's always just been a fascination as to how to really just find, you know, a good, strong, comfortable flow in that space and really get good at it. Because to me, that just, you know, the slower you go, and we talk about it in everything, is that if you can master slow, then you can go faster without thinking about it. So it's really an intriguing thing for me, because it's so hard sometimes to be, you know, it's sort of like sitting in silence, you know, and try that, you know, go sit down for a half hour without your phone, you know, it's like boiled down into training, you know, it's like, going fast and hard is like a distraction almost. And if you can, but you know, and then ideally in a race, you're not going to be doing that. So how are you going to handle it? You know, so it's really, it's just really interesting, man. All this stuff is, and I do think it's, I think, you know, we talked a little bit about it before the cast. It's this time of year, you know, a lot of people got early races and they've been in and out and whatever, but man, just, it's time. I know you want to do it. Just jump back in and do it, you know, get back there, even like, you know, have a good workout. You feel great. You know, like you're saying, you're addicted to feeling good. And, you know, that cycle can be a cycle of doom the other way. So just kind of like, you know, it's like Goggins, right? I love him. I can't be Goggins. You know, we talk about,
Same.
you know what I mean? Like but I love everything he's talking about, because to me, everything's on a continuum. If I'm talking about being in the middle or in the middle way and trying to be in the ballpark, whatever, I just like him to drag me that way a little bit. You know what I mean? That's all it is. It's like people get so upset, like, this is not the way to do it. No, people say shit and do shit. And there's people out like Kobe. You know, I watched that documentary on him. You know, people are like, this dude's crazy, man. But, and that's his choice. He went all in, you know, he went all in on trying to be the best player ever. And not many people can do that, because you're sacrificing, you know, basically life and friends and all that kind of stuff. And that's basically what Goggins does. But there's a lot of good stuff in there that can pull you toward what you want. And that's all I look for. You know, it's sort of like, I need a little nudge. I'm not going to be him, but I can be a little bit more him. And, you know, I can be, you know, the guy that, you know, just sits in a lawn chair once in a while too. You know,
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like take advice and take, you know, and learn some lessons from the greatest of all time in all things. Right. In all different avenues, not just sport, but, you know, in profession and like,
but don't beat yourself up because you can't get to that level.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what I think we get confused a lot.
Totally agree. And because then it's like, oh, well, that's just not me. It's the same thing when you hear people bemoan, well, they're just, you know, they have different DNA and they're just, you know, they were born with it. It's my least favorite phrase, I think, maybe. Except, do you want pineapple on that pizza? Outside of that phrase, the phrase, well, you're just gifted. You just have it. Like, you know how many people have said that probably have 50 billion more times, you know, ability, but they never even scratch the surface because they sit in this excuse-driven life of, well, it just comes natural to you. I think people that have, you know, even like small benefits like that, don't fucking work hard. Like, greatness is when talent and work come together. You just aren't talented and then you're just great. It requires work. And I just think we totally get into this like, oh, well, that's just not me. I just can't have that. Well, no, it's not you, because you're not doing any of the work to allow that to become you. So take lessons from the greatest in all areas of life, and then think, you know what? I can do that, and I can do this, right? No one's asking you to be Kobe. No one's asking you to be Michael. No one's asking to be Warren Buffett. No one's asking you to be, you know, these ridiculously, you know, successful people. Just be the most successful version of you. Because you're probably not going to be like that. You know, that's why there's like once in a lifetime, like once in a generation type of athletes. Right. And like what they're able to achieve, like that's it. But you've only got one lifetime of your own. And it would probably suit you and suit the world better even to try to get the best out of it on your own. So again, find what works. Again, like no one expects you to be the greatest ever. It's doing the best that you can possibly do. And that's all you should ask of yourself, right? But I think we end up never reaching our full potential because we get too comfortable in telling ourselves, or we're just not there, so we don't have that, or they're just gifted, or, you know, I'm never going to do this because I'm just not a runner. I'm just not how many people have probably overcome like way worse obstacles than the people who make those excuses to end up running fast? Probably thousands, maybe even tens of hundreds of thousands. Right. It's about how hard, and you see it all the time. And so do I, like in our line of work, of people who overcome all kinds of obstacles to achieve incredible things. You come from totally sedentary lives to then achieving everything. Because I guarantee you, for every excuse that you give that you can't do X, Y, or Z, you can look up and find thousands of people who have had it the same or worse and have accomplished everything that you said that you can't. And they're no different than you. Right? We're all different, but none of us are special, right? It's like I said, some email yesterday. It was kind of harsh, but it's true. I said my trauma and my obstacles aren't special, and neither are yours. It doesn't give us an excuse. It doesn't give us a pass. It just means you have to work hard, and how we work and what happens to us is all relative, right? And just like pain and effort is all relative. Everyone's RPE scale is different. Like, doesn't mean you don't have to work. And doesn't mean your life is harder than everybody else's. But I guarantee you I can scroll through Training Peaks and read a comment about how hard their life is, and then scroll to the next person and see a life 20 times harder, and they're getting way more done and way more accomplished, have a way better attitude about life. Again, it's what you make of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's how hard you choose to work. Again, it's not any, it's not easy, right? It's not supposed to be easy. Like, and I said this in my email. We can close it here in a minute, but I'm one of those people that feels like life is supposed to be hard. Life's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. That's how we grow. We don't grow from complacency. We don't grow from, things being handed to us. We don't appreciate the freebies. We appreciate and the things we have to really, really, really work hard for. And in the middle of working really, really, really hard to get there, we learn things about ourselves, and we create good patterns and habits about ourselves that transcend other parts of our life. If it's easy all the time and you're waiting for easy, you're waiting for a knock on the door. It's never going to come. And guess what? If easy does come calling, it's not going to have much to say, and you're not going to gain much from the conversation because you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
It's the hard stuff that really galvanizes you into becoming who you are and ultimately who you really want to be.
Yeah. And, I agree with that. Life is, life is hard, and there's a lot of difficult things, but I think where we get in a bind sometimes is we make that hard seem impossible, where we just need to do something a little hard and not try to already be at the end game of the impossibility of it. Because then you get stagnant and don't do anything. Just make it a little harder.
Nothing wrong with making it a little bit harder.
All right, dude.
That's all I got.
That's all we got.
Wrap it up. Hope you appreciated it. And if you didn't, that's okay too. Sometimes we need these things, as we all do, as I do, and I'm sure you do sometimes as well. Man. Exactly.
That's all it is.
That's all we got. We'll see you Thursday. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. I will catch you Thursday. See ya.
Yep.